Hello and welcome. My name is Justin, and thank you for once again joining me here at my table. Today, we're going to be going over something interesting. So, when I first started DMing, one of the biggest things that kind of, um, I guess, made me nervous was notes. I'm terrible at taking notes. In school, I was always really bad at notes. Even though I had notebooks full, it was honestly always full of stuff that didn't really matter all that much. I had a really hard time with just taking quick notes in classes. So I was really, really worried about it. And I've learned through my note taking in D&D that it's best to not stress too much over the notes. And we'll go over that in the video. But today's video is going to be all about taking notes as a DM and how my note taking has changed over time. I've been DMing for roughly maybe close to 4 years now. No, I think it's about 3. It doesn't matter. But I've DM'd hundreds of games at this point. And so I wanted to show you how my how my note-taking styles have changed over the course of the sessions that I have run. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so here we have the notes from my very first game session with my main friend group. It was my first game session that I had ever DM'd after writing this world for roughly about a year and a half. Spent way too much time writing. And it's interesting because looking at the notes that I have here, you really wouldn't guess that this was a year and a half in the making. I mean, it's single. This was a 2-hour game session, and I managed to get 2 hours out of just this. And I remember the first game session very well. The events that took place were essentially the players were teleported from different realms in the multiverse to this island that was created by the god of war, Tempest, for his war games. It's a tournament that he held once every century that would essentially choose his next general in his army. And he chose from people that from all across the multiverse that to him showed the potential of being a general. And what he would do is he would teleport them. He would first invite them, which was a prerequisite that the players had agreed to, that all of their characters had agreed to the invitation and accepted it. And they would be teleported over to this island that Tempest had created and battle in this tournament to see who would take the top spot. And so the players were teleported in. This kind of helped me not have to worry about just kind of like implementing them into the world. It let me just kind of shove them in, which helped as my first time DMing. So they showed up. An NPC that I had created was the announcer over all of this. He was actually a character that I had played in our previous campaign before I ran this. I kind of tied him into the world somehow, but they were teleported in. The announcements were made. The rules were set for the game, and so with them there was a kobold and a goblin who were initially part of the competition. And at the beginning, while Farron, the NPC announcer, was trying to announce the rules, one of the rules is you are not allowed to kill your competition. And so in the middle of this, the kobold sneaks over and stabs the goblin in the back and kills him. And Farron, the announcer, immediately, as a max level wizard, casts a level 9 lightning bolt and fucking just obliterates this kobold in front of the world to see, and the crowd went wild. This island called Helgora, absolutely loves war, absolutely loves combat, and everything having to do with it. So they jumped into the first event of the tournament, which was an all-out brawl in this Coliseum that I had created, Fohammer Coliseum, and they ended up fighting a large group of abyssal chickens. I chose those because I thought they were fun. Varen had summoned them into the arena, and the players had to fight them. So that was the first session. It was a lot of fun. In the middle of the combat, a dragon ended up showing up, which led to a lot of other things in the game. But down to the actual notes themselves. So I have this separated, and I got this template from watching the DM Layer. If you haven't heard of him, go check it out. It's a YouTube channel that does D&D stuff as well. And Lucas Hart does some incredible videos to help new DMs and existing DMs getting better. But I kind of stole this template from him in a way, but kind of made it my own a little bit. But this has changed since this first session for sure, which we'll get into. So it's separated into session start notes, pre-game checklist, plot points to hit, active quest lines that the players are on, and the end of session notes that I took down. So the way that this worked was any notes that I needed at the beginning of the session, I would put in the start notes section. So whatever happened in the previous game, in this case, there was no previous game. So it was just kind of start of a brand new adventure, which of course, and reminding myself to stay calm because I was extremely nervous and anxious for this first session, especially because I had put so much effort into it. There was sound effects, there was voices, there was visuals, that I had built a battle map for it. I had put a lot of effort into this first session, and it went really, really well. Mainly because of all of this pre-game stuff that I had done, all of this setup. But I have my pre-game checklist. So session 0, I had to go over all the house rules and mechanics, do a sound check if I needed to, make sure all the software needed is up and running, and just to get started. Now the plot points, this is where all of the events that occur through the session went. Now, admittedly, it wasn't the best. Like it just was not organized the way that it should have been. I remember very well not using my notes almost at all throughout that entire first session. I just had everything I was going to be doing in my head, and I just rolled with it. Which is something to kind of take away from this, is to not lean too heavy into your notes. Most of the time when you're running through your game, if you're like me, you're not going to be paying as much attention to your notes as you probably should, but most of the time things aren't going to go the way that you want them to, and you kind of have to expect that. And so leaning into the notes too hard kind of just, at least for me, it made it so it would make eventually, whenever I tried to lean into the notes, at least it made it so that I was kind of handicapping myself, and I wasn't able to focus as intensely as I wanted to on the game, and making sure that things were going well, making sure that I was able to rebound from the players' wild adventures off the plot line. So yeah, I guess the main point I'm trying to make here is don't lean too heavy into your notes. Don't lean too heavy into what you have scripted. Let everything play out as it will. And I'm pretty happy with how I went in terms of doing that, in terms of allowing myself to just let the game flow. After that, we have active quests here, which in that world there didn't end up actually being too many quests, and so it really wasn't necessary at the time. It is now, and I'll show you why soon. And then, of course, like I said, at the end of the session, if there were any notes that I needed to take during or at the end of the session, I would stay after a little bit and make sure to write all of those down. Something that was interesting that ended up out of this was that one of the players, named Marley, he actually destroyed the wall around the Colosseum a little bit. And it ended up leading to some other things. It actually led to the players being able to use that to break through and help get the people out of the stadium, because they were all excuse me, in danger from the dragon that had shown up. And just reassuring myself that my friends really enjoyed the game session. So yeah, this was the very first game that I ever ran, which was pretty wild. Pretty much all the notes that I took throughout that entire, I think it was a 1.5 year long campaign. We did over 60 sessions. This is what they looked like. It kind of evolved a little bit. I added some color at some point, which I'll show you here in a second. But this is essentially how my first game notes were organized. So now we're going to jump ahead to... this was in 2024. So this was a game that I ran in a setting that I'm actually currently still writing. I'm writing a module. It's called Camelot in Death's Wake. And eventually it'll be done, but it's definitely not yet. But this is the evolution of my notes. So instead of having an active quest section, because my players in my first campaign didn't really do quests, they just kind of were in a direction. I decided to change the wording to active direction, and I added a section to add current time so that I knew where the game was at in time. And in this case, days of the week. I kept it as a 7-day cycle, just like in real life. You'll notice I changed the pre-game section. It's a checklist instead of just like just the bullet points on what I needed to do before the game started. And the reason I did this was because I really wanted to be able to focus on the things that I need to do and check them off as I go. And it helped for sure. So in this case, I needed to set up the player's tokens in the map that I had made. I needed to rewrite the description for one of the NPCs. I needed to write the description for an in-world thing that happens. Yeah, and so it helped. It did help, and if you're the kind of person that isn't able to focus without a checklist, then I highly recommend doing this, just to kind of keep yourself on pace and on track before you start your game. Even in the days prior, whenever you're just getting the prep done for your game, if you need a checklist, highly suggest doing it. Then we get down to plot points. So this is where I decided to change my note-taking style up quite a bit, where I was going for more of a full written out quest that I would just plop in to the plot point section. Full written out quest, knowing the goals, knowing the obstacles and all that things, all the enemies that they might encounter in this quest. Just having it there so that I could reference it. I would read through them before the game started. So then there's this one. Of course, this in between. I note that they had some shopping time if they wanted to, and then eventually they would have to leave towards the church, which in this case they were going to investigate this abandoned church out in the middle of the forest, because some weird things were happening out there. And then then this is where they got to the old abandoned church, and this was the essentially the big boss encounter. So yeah, this was interesting because I kind of leaned into the whole idea of not actually leaning on my notes too much, and just referencing the way that I know the encounter is supposed to go. And if I needed to reference for DCs as later on, I do put actual ability checks with DCs in here, and it was good in the way that I was handling this journey, this little adventure I had written, because the whole point of this was was working on and still am running games to basically build out this world that I'm writing into a module. Rather than just sitting down and writing the module and trying to build the world in my head, I was building it with the players. So allowing for just writing out the encounter or the quest or whatever it is, and having that there for me to reference for the actual encounter itself, but then just leaving everything else mostly open-ended allowed for the players to have a lot more agency in the world and a lot more of a chance to help me build it out, help me really identify key points in the world that I needed to build more, or even just giving them the agency of building things out themselves. So in my experience at this point, if you are a new DM and you are able to imagine things very well, if you're able to just come up with things off the cuff and be spontaneous with how things move in your campaigns, this might be a decent writing style for you. If you're running a module, maybe even typing out the quest, or even just having the module quest in front of you that you can reference, but not leaning into having everything written out, might be a good way for you to keep your notes as a DM. But if you really need that written out step-by-step bullet list so that you can just have it in front of you, then this might not be the writing style for you in terms of notes. And so yeah, I didn't change anything at the end here. This is just my end of session notes. This one's actually a lot more intense because, as I said, I was allowing the party to help me build the world out as well. So I took a lot more notes here so that I could know how the party was building things out along the way. So finally, we have and come to one of my latest games, which is actually, I'm running the module Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. And in this one, I've kind of combined those two writing styles and also added a lot more color coding in here so that I can just look, see what I need to reference. If there's a check that I need to reference that I have written that can be made, I can just, oh, there it is. Okay, so they need to make a DC 15 investigation check. Cool. I have changed the active quests, active direction section to active quests, side quests, and current time. And the reason I did that is because I'm kind of allowing quests to be a broader idea. So thinking in terms of Icewind Dale and in terms of this quest right here, it's called Conspiracies Abound. So I've got, oh, this is actually not, there we go. So what I did is I have a little subtitle for the specific section of that quest they're in, to kind of give me an idea of what is going on in that section. And then I have the quest title itself to kind of keep things organized. So Conspiracies Abound. So these three were all in within the Conspiracies Abound quest line, which is actually a quest that I wrote myself. It was just kind of a little side plot that that the players kind of uncovered from an NPC that I had written for a quest to start the campaign, but that doesn't matter. So the way I've kind of separated this is each quest has different sections. So in this case, it's Taken, Early Sacrifice, and Jail Time. Jail Time didn't even actually happen, funny enough, because the players didn't get caught, which is something you should expect. As I said, players can absolutely derail your thing. I had made a map. I prepared a full side quest line for this, prepared NPCs, things that were going on, and it just, poof, gone. But it's fine because it actually ended up being really cool. So yes, back to this. I'm sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. So I have this separated into different sections to kind of keep my mind both focused and not focused at the same time. I found that I don't like having to think of a full long quest line when we're in the middle of just a small section of that quest. It just muddles things in my head, and makes it harder for me to kind of focus in the moment. So I've kind of come up with this idea of splitting it up into different sections so that I can be more present in the moment. Focusing on just the Taken section. The players had just finished with a combat encounter, and had to go check on an NPC, the NPC, that they were working with in this quest line, because the NPC had essentially sort of walkied them, like talked to them over a sending stone, which is essentially like a walkie-talkie, and mentioned that she was in trouble. And that led to them going back to where the NPC was and essentially finding that something had happened. There was blood on the ground where they had left her, along with a sling, because her arm was in a sling at the time. And the massive creature, it's a troll that she had befriended. This NPC had befriended a troll, was actually on the ground dying after having been injected with acid. And so that just kind of, having it separated into that little section and having notes on specific things that could happen in that section, such as a DC-10 medicine check to determine that the troll was in fact injected with a massive amount of acid, which was eating away at her insides. Having it separated like this just allows me to focus more. So that's kind of the idea around these notes. It's kind of a mesh of the writing out the full quest line, as well as keeping the small bullet points that I had in my original campaign, meshing them together and then adding some color coding so that I can keep track of specific things. So in this case, for time, anything having to do with time is green like this. Labeling quests and things like that and important things are gold. Any side notes that I need, such as checks, or things or points of interest or items of interest, are in blue. And side quests are labeled in purple. You'll also notice my pregame checklist isn't very filled out. I've kind of stopped focusing on that all that much, especially because I'm not using all of this stuff anymore. I'm not recording my sessions on OBS unless I'm doing like my podcast campaigns. I'm not using voice mod anymore, so I'm not too worried about that. Yeah. Haven't really been focusing too much on that, but session end notes are definitely still getting written out. And there's nothing really that has changed in that. So it's very interesting looking back at my old notes and kind of reminding myself how much I've changed in my DM style. I like to think that it also kind of shows my buildup of confidence in myself in terms of DMing, because at first I was not confident at all, which is why my notes were minimal, because I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. And then my confidence started to build a little bit, and that was when I started leaning into the full written out notes, full written out quest lines in my game notes, so that I could, at least at the time, I thought that it would help me follow the quest lines better and better understand the moment, I guess you could say, moment to moment. But it did kind of muddle things. So now that I am to the point where I am pretty comfortable going into every session, I wouldn't say that I get nervous at all each session, to be completely honest, at this point, which is really nice. It makes things much easier, makes me feel better going into the games. I'm able to focus better. And that kind of, I believe, shows in my newest version of my notes, where I've got things color-coded. I've got things separated into ways that I understand them better. And I guess that's something to really take away from this video, is your note-taking style is absolutely going to change over time. It will. And if you want to try and, take this note-taking template and use it on your own, you're more than welcome to. I mean, free. It's free use. I mean, it's video. But just keep an open mind about how you take your notes and how you change in taking your notes over time. And understand that it's going to take a long time for you to build that confidence to really solidify how you take your notes. Especially if you're someone who's wanting to try to DM for a long time or DM a lot of games. Like in my case, I'm playing in 4 games, DMing 3 right now. And I wouldn't have been able to do this around that first session at all. There's 0 chance I would have been able to do this. I would have muddled everything together. So take it slow. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some forgiveness, especially if you have a bad session or something like that. It's okay. It happens. I've had plenty of them. And just remember, it's fun. If you're not enjoying your note-taking style, but you still enjoy DMing, maybe minimize your notes to where you don't necessarily need them. If you absolutely adore note-taking, then just go nuts. It's up to you. So if any of you have anything to add to anything I've said, please feel free to comment below. Let me know what you thought of the video. If you have any interesting note-taking styles yourself, feel free to let me know in the comments. It'd be very interesting to see some other note-taking styles. Haven't had too many other people to really share this kind of thing with, or converse about it. So please let me know what you think in the comments, or give the video a like if you liked it, and hit subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Thank you very much again for joining me here at my table today, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.